Dracula has long become a symbol of darkness in popular culture. The image of an immortal being living in a castle and stepping out of the night has haunted humanity for centuries. But few people know that before becoming a fictional legend, the name Dracula was linked to a real man. And the historical truth behind that name is colder than any imagined tale. That man was Vlad III, also known by the title that made much of medieval Europe wary of him, Vlad the Impaler. Vlad III was born in the early 15th century in the region of Wallachia, part of present-day Romania. He was a prince, but his life carried none of the colors of glory or peace. The era in which Vlad grew up was a Europe immersed in endless war, betrayal, and struggles for power. In that world, a throne was not protected by trust, but by fear. It was within this harsh context that Vlad began to shape the path that would make him one of the most controversial figures in European history. Vlad's childhood was far from gentle. At a very young age, he was sent away to live as a political hostage, far from his family and homeland. Those years passed under strict discipline, constant control, and a permanent sense of uncertainty. Vlad learned to remain silent, to observe, and to endure. No one is born carrying darkness, but some circumstances are powerful enough to carve fear deep into a child mind. And it was those stolen years that planted the seeds of the man history would later fear. When Vlad reclaimed control of Wallachia, he did not choose a soft approach. Instead, he built his authority through symbolic fear. Public punishments were used as silent warnings, aimed at enemies as well as anyone considering betrayal. Without going into detail, it is enough to know that these measures were so strong that many armies hesitated before engaging at all. In an age when force was a common language, Vlad spoke it more extremely than almost anyone else. During the time Vlad III ruled Wallachia, the land became known not for wealth, but for something very different: absolute order. People whispered that under Vlad rule, even the most daring individuals would not dare to break the law. A real story recorded by historians became a symbol of that reality. At the center of the capital Targoviste, Vlad ordered a cup made of solid gold to be placed beside a public well. Anyone passing by could use it to drink water. There were no guards, no chains, no public warnings. That golden cup remained there day after day. Merchants from distant lands, travelers, and even foreign envoys could hardly believe their eyes. In many other parts of Europe, an object of such value would have disappeared within hours. But in Wallachia, no one dared to touch it with the intention of taking it away. Not because the people were wealthy, but because they clearly understood the consequences of breaking the law. According to historical records, the golden cup did not disappear for many years. It was only removed after Vlad lost his rule. When order collapsed, the cup vanished without a trace, as quickly as the fear that had once kept it in place. This story spread across Europe like a whisper. Without war, without constant public punishment, Vlad created a society where the law existed in the minds of the people, without needing to be spoken aloud. To outsiders, it was proof of harsh rule. But to Vlad, it was his greatest victory. When fear was strong enough, he no longer needed to act. And stories like this ensured that later generations no longer remembered Vlad only as a prince, but as a haunting presence, a man whose mere existence was enough to keep an entire kingdom silent. Vlad's reputation spread throughout Europe. To his enemies, he was a living nightmare. But to a portion of the people of Wallachia, he was seen as a bringer of order. Theft nearly vanished, and laws were followed absolutely. In a world filled with chaos, he chose to become a greater fear to drive away smaller threats. And from that, history posed a question that has never been fully answered. Was Vlad a cruel man, or simply the inevitable product of a brutal age? After Vlad's death, the stories about him did not disappear. Instead, they continued to be passed down, growing darker and more mysterious over time. The name Dracula, meaning son of the dragon, became linked to disturbing rumors. Centuries later, the writer Bram Stoker drew inspiration from that name and reputation to create the character Dracula in his famous novel. The Dracula of literature is not Vlad, but the fear that character evokes clearly reflects the shadow Vlad left behind in history. Vlad's departure was as unclear as his life. There is no agreement on how he died, and even his final resting place remains a mystery. But perhaps that no longer matters. Vlad does not need a grave to be remembered. His legacy is an obsession that has lasted more than 5 centuries, crossing history, literature, and cinema. Time may blur the truth, but fear always endures. Vlad the Impaler has been gone for a very long time, yet his image still lives on in retold stories, in films, and in the legend of Dracula.